Hey Vertical Kids, we're glad you're joining us today as we continue our story. So yesterday we talked about Jesus on the cross. Isaiah, as Jesus was on the cross, what did he call out with his last breath?
It is finished.
It is finished. Then he bowed his head and died. At that moment, an earthquake shook the land and rocks split open. The curtain in the temple was torn in half from top to bottom because Jesus had come to bring people back into right relationship with God. Matthew even tells us that upon Jesus' death, tombs opened up and people were raised from the dead. The Roman centurion who was standing near the cross saw all that had happened and exclaimed, "Surely this was the Son of God." While Jesus was on that cross, he experienced terrible suffering. He endured the pain of the cross, the nails and the crown of thorns. He endured the pain and ridicule as onlookers made fun of him, and shame as his body was beaten and broken before the watching world. But the greatest suffering Jesus experienced on that dark day was when God the Father poured out his wrath upon him and had to turn his face away. Jesus didn't just die, he became sin for us. He took the punishment that you and I deserve. And when he called out, "It is finished," he was saying that our penalty had been paid in full. God's anger had been turned away from us. Forgiveness was ours to receive. If you're following along with us today, you can open up your Bibles to Matthew chapter 27, and we'll begin in verse 57. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in clean linen shroud. And he laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how that impostor said while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise.' Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he has risen from the dead. And the last fraud will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. Joseph of Arimathea, a disciple of Jesus, asked Pilate's permission to take Jesus' body and bury it. They took his body off the cross, wrapped him with spices and clean linen cloth, and buried him in the tomb that Joseph had cut from the rock himself. It was to be his own tomb, but he gave it to be used for Jesus. The darkest day in history was now over. But although Jesus was now dead and buried, the Pharisees were worried that the disciples would try to steal Jesus' body and pretend that he had risen from the dead. They went to Pilate and asked the soldiers to be sent to the tomb to guard Jesus' body. So they sealed the tomb and posted soldiers to stand watch over the tomb. Jesus' friends, family, and followers were devastated. They couldn't understand what had happened to their Lord, and their hearts were filled with great sadness and confusion. But we know the story isn't over yet. God is still at work in the midst of the darkness, and we can't wait to have you join us tomorrow as we discover what happens next. So today, kids, if you grab your day 7 bag, you'll find some paper plates cut in half and some brown paper. And what you're going to do is take those 2 paper plates and have the round side of it facing outward, and you'll staple or tape it together so it makes kind of the shape of a tomb. You can take scissors and cut out a flap so it looks like the stone that they put in front of the entrance. And then take that brown piece of paper and you'll crumble it up until it makes a ball or a rock, and you can just set it right in front of the tomb. You guys can also color the tomb if you want to make it gray or brown or look like a rock. Can I sit down, buddy?
Yeah.
Can you hold this for me? Thank you. So we'd love to have you guys join us and post pictures of you making your own tomb. as we remember today when our Lord was crucified and buried. And we can't wait to have you join us tomorrow.